Good morning, everyone. I am Jacob Moss, CEO of West Michigan Works, and it truly is my pleasure to welcome you to today's panel discussion with three state, and I would say amazing state government leaders who are very involved in both workforce development and education issues across the state. This webinar is being recorded so that we can share it for those who are not able to attend. And just as an FYI for those panelists, that whatever you say may stay on the internet forever. Before we begin our discussion, let me introduce our panel members. Representative Terry Sabo. He is serving his second term representing Michigan's 92nd House District. Representative Sabo serves on the Appropriations Committee, where he is the Democratic Vice Chair of the House General Government Subcommittee. He also sits on the Agricultural and Rural Development and Corrections Subcommittees. As a lifelong resident of Muskegon County, Representative Sabo has dedicated his time to developing a safer and more prosperous Muskegon. He served 4 years in the United States Air Force, and we thank you for your service. And as a security policeman before his more than 25 years of employment as Muskegon Heights firefighter and police officer. Thank you for joining Representative Sabo. Representative Mary Whiteford was first elected to serve the 80th House District in the Michigan House of Representatives in March of 2016. Representative Whiteford serves as chair of the Health and Human Services Appropriations Subcommittee. She's also a member of the Health Policy Committee, the Appropriations Committee, and the Appropriations Subcommittee on Joint Capital Outlay. Whiteford worked in a pediatric neurosurgery unit before working in a pediatric emergency unit. In 1997, she started an accounting business with her husband, Kevin, and they now run their own financial planning firm. Thank you for joining Representative Whiteford. And Doug Ross. Doug was appointed by Governor Gretchen Whitmer as Senior Advisor for Michigan Prosperity. Ross has served in numerous positions in government, public interest, and business, working for various politicians, and political activist groups. He worked as Michigan's Director of Commerce under Governor Blanchard, where he was instrumental in reshaping Michigan's revitalization and Michigan's economy. Ross also served as Assistant Secretary for Employment and Training Administration in the U.S. Department of Labor. Additionally, Ross founded Michigan Future, a bipartisan group of business and community leaders working to instigate a change and revitalization in Michigan's economy. And he founded the charter school, University Preparatory Academy in Detroit, and also a former senator. Governor Whitmer has asked Ross to work on developing strategies to boost Michigan's percentage of adults with a high-level certificate, associate's degree, bachelor's degree, or higher. He is integrally involved in the governor's education initiatives, including 60 by 30, Michigan Reconnect, and Futures for Frontliners. Thanks for joining us today, Doug Ross.
Pleasure.
Now let's start the discussion with a question for Representative Sabo. Representative Sabo, I understand you are one of the sponsors of a package of bills collectively referred to as the Michigan Strong Plan. Can you tell us more about this bill package and how it will assist workers across the state who have been adversely impacted by the COVID-19 crisis?
Sure, Jacob. First, I wanted to say thank you for having me on this panel today. It really is an honor to be a part of this and going across the state. So the Michigan Strong Plan is a plan that has been introduced and really is ongoing by the Michigan House Democrats. It's nothing that's just started and stopped. It's an ongoing process of bill introductions, really to try to help Michigan's families in many different areas. So there's no way I'd be able to go through all the bills that are in the ongoing package, but I want to highlight just some of the areas that we're focusing on. One is a strong and healthy Michigan. It really deals with a lot of the health issues that obviously of what COVID-19 has presented to us, and to make sure that people have access to the health care that they need going forward. Also, it's another area, is access to clean water and air. Those are big areas, making sure that our environment is safe. And that's an ongoing thing, but especially now with the crisis going on, with the health crisis going on when it comes to potentially water shutoffs or any of the other inspections that may take place. Additionally, we have the safeguards to help with basic needs. That would be, things such as, paid health or paid sick leave. Again, utility shutoffs, those types of things to make sure that people have what they need in order to get through the health crisis. That's really is brought on an economic crisis as well. Protecting those who protect and serve us. That goes towards all of our frontline workers and making sure that we are adequately giving them the resources that they need, not only to do their job, but also, you know, recognizing the essential work that's being done by people in various career fields. And then investing in education and closing the divide, making sure that our kids have access to the educational needs that they need to have and to compete in today's economy, in today's world. And of course, that's really becoming very prevalent now with potentially some schools opening back up and going back to school. It's going to be, you know, it's going to be a different kind of time, that's for sure. And then another thing on our list and one of our buckets is keeping neighborhood businesses strong. You know, our small businesses have really taken a hit over the last several months, and making sure that they have the resources that they need going forward is going to be very important. And then finally, strengthening our democracy to ensure, you know, not making it more difficult for people to vote, but really trying to make it easier for them. And through mail-in, absentee ballot applications, those types of things. Just trying to make it easier for people to do what we really want everyone to do, is to get out and vote and make sure voices are heard. So, you know, generally that is the package, and it is very lengthy, but you know, it just kind of shows you where our mindset is at in trying to help making sure Michigan's families are able to get through these crises.
Great, thanks, Representative Sabo. And as a Michigan Works agency that covers Muskegon County, we certainly appreciate your leadership at the state level and local level, frankly. Really appreciate all the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Representative Whiteford, we are hearing a lot about the state budget deficit and the impact that COVID-19 crisis is having on our state's budget. As a member of the House Appropriations Committee, can you tell us how you arrived at a balanced budget, and how will any cuts that were made impact job seekers and employers?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me today on this sunny day. I don't know about you guys, we had some big storms during the night. But so I am chair of the Health and Human Services budget, which is normally about $26 billion, give or take a billion as we currently sit. But it is the state's safety net. It's all of our Medicaid beneficiaries, which was about 2.4 million people, about a quarter of our state. And that may go up to 3 million people. So 30% of our state. If it goes up to that 3 million people, that's going to cost us an additional $500 million of general fund. So when we speak about everybody being on the same health insurance plan, we say Medicaid for all, Medicare for all, it costs the people of Michigan a ton of money. And so that's very challenging. The feds gave us, it's called an FMAP bonus. And so that helped us save some money. That amount is based on how our economy is faring. So it was a high rate, so Michigan had to pay a low rate for all our Medicaid beneficiaries back in the downturn of the economy back in 2010 through 12. And it's gradually been decreasing, so we have to pay more of that with our own general fund money. Through this crisis, the feds changed our number to save the state general fund. But the problem with that, it can be seen as a problem, but it's actually a benefit for our job creators, is that anybody who gets on the Medicaid rolls cannot be kicked off for any reason, even if they get a job and their employer offers health insurance. I'm hearing that we had our the first 3 months, so the second quarter of this year, third quarter of this year, we had that enhanced FMAP, and I'm hearing that we're going to have that through the end of the year as well. So that is something that is important for our job creators to know, is that you're going to get, when you start hiring people back in and they're on Medicaid, that you've got some time to kick in that extra money for health insurance. How do we craft this? I mean, there's so many moving parts in our entire budget, but especially in mine. And there's, trying to figure out what kind of matches we have. I have been probably put in at least 100 hours with my fiscal team. There's 8 of us trying to come up with every scenario, from best case, which would have been a normal budget, to worst case, where we're cutting reimbursements for every single Medicaid provider in the state. That's challenging because most people don't know this, and it took me a while to figure it out. Medicare reimburses at about 100%. Medicaid reimburses at about 50 to 60% of that, so about half. Private insurance reimburses almost 3 times Medicare. So here we have private insurance is basically doing that lift up for our providers, our doctors, our nurses, our clinics to be able to provide services. If you have a clinic that's purely Medicaid, they're probably not going to be able to pay for their heat. They're probably not going to be able to pay their employees. I know a dentist who went out of business because all he had was Medicaid patients and he couldn't pay his bills. So it gets really complicated that way. And so I need to make sure that we're weighing that. So I have every scenario out there. I hope I don't have that worst case scenario that'll save $100 million of general fund. And if you understand general fund, it's basically sales tax, personal property, or whatever you're paying for your taxes, that's got it's flexibility with those numbers. Almost all of our budget is either the feds say we have to spend it a certain way, or somebody passed a bill that turned into law that ensures that that money is only spent in that manner. So we've got some flexibility with that general fund part of our budget. And so we're going to see how that plays out. We've got CREC coming up. By statute, we have 2 consensus revenue estimating conferences a year. And that is how we base our budget. So the economists, the fiscal folks, they get together and they say, okay, guys, here's the money that you're working with for the current year, for the next year. With our income tax filings being postponed to July 15th, which my husband's a tax accountant, he was so busy in July because so many people were coming and paying their taxes, which is good for Michigan. So we've had that July number. We also have the federal COVID money. So many people were getting that $600. I mean, if you annualize that, people were making about $55,000 a year with that COVID money. That has now stopped, but still they're paying taxes on it. So there was a lot of uncertainty in the month of July. So August 20th, the fiscal teams, the economists are getting together. They're giving us numbers. We'll have our marching orders. We're going to have just a crazy September figuring out how we're going to balance a budget and have it on the governor's desk so everybody has certainty. So there's a lot of work to do, but it's good and it's respectful because these are people's lives who need us, our foster children, our seniors in nursing homes, our people on Medicaid, people who are human trafficked. They're part of the budget. Our homeless shelters, those are all wrapped into this and they get state funding. So it's very important, especially, I just heard recently that we could have an additional 2,000 suicides and overdoses because of the isolation and the depression that is directly attributed to this difficult time with COVID. And so it's important for us to have that safety net and to get out and get working. And I need all our employers, hopefully everybody's as busy as what I've been seeing along the coast here. There's tons of people out shopping and eating. And so I'm just praying that all of our employers are having that experience as well and have the opportunity to start hiring people back. And it saves lives. So, but thank you.
Thanks for your answer, Representative Whiteford. And as a Michigan Works agency that covers Allegan County too, I want to appreciate your leadership both from a state level as well as local level. So we know you're very active and engaged in the community, and appreciate, certainly with the number of committees that you're on, you're certainly busy.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jacob.
So next question for Doug Ross. Shortly after the governor took office, she called for a statewide goal of 60% of Michigan adults having a post-secondary education credential by 2030 as part of a larger strategy to address a growing talent shortage in the state's workforce, with programs like Michigan Reconnect being a part of that strategy. As COVID-19 has evolved, future frontliners workers have been critical to all of us. So the governor introduced the Futures for Frontliners program to provide a tuition-free pathway to college or a technical certificate for those essential workers who don't already have a degree. As part of your charge as senior advisor to the governor for Michigan Prosperity, all 3 of these initiatives are in your wheelhouse. Can you tell us more about these initiatives and how they will help workers all across the state?
Be my pleasure to try. Thanks. I come to this panel first with a great deal of appreciation and respect for what Michigan Works has been, but even more what you're going to have to be able to do if the state is to move forward. You are the principal bridge between this growing number of unemployed people we have and the chance to work and be self-sufficient and support a family. So I wanted to let you know I consider it an honor to be here. Well, the governor's long-term economic development strategy basically said there are three things we must do well, or no matter what else we do, we will not become a more prosperous community and our families and individuals will not prosper. And that was one, we needed to rebuild our infrastructure, fix the damn roads. Second was significantly increase the education attainment of Michiganders. That if you look at the sort of correlation between per capita income in states and the level of education of people in those states, it's a straight line. You want to get richer as a community, get more educated. It's almost that straightforward. And the third is to improve our K-12 system so that it in fact is a globally competitive system. We do those three things, we have a very good chance of being successful. If we don't do them, we won't. So 60 by 30 was a way of saying, right now, 45% of Michiganders have basically a college degree or a regular occupational or skill certificate. We've got 10 years to move that to 60%. That still won't put us at the top of the nation, but it will move us to the top ranks. The pandemic pushes us back. Clearly, fewer people are going to be starting college, returning to college over what we expected. We're going to have to fight now to get back on that track. Reconnect, which is a program which says, if you are 25 or older in Michigan and you don't have a college degree, you have access, will have access to tuition-free community college. That was enacted in March. The money was put aside for it, but when the pandemic struck, money for all new programs was scooped up to throw into the emergency. So it's waiting eventual funding. My opportunity was the other proposal she made in her first State of the State, which would provide tuition-free access to community college for every graduating high school senior. So in effect, what the governor is saying is a high school diploma is no longer enough. And rather than having a pre-K-12 system, we want to create a pre-K-14 system in this state. With the pandemic pushing the initiation of all of those programs aside, we just saw the opportunity to use some federal money that couldn't be used for non-education purposes to do a version of Reconnect for those who worked in essential industries. In other words, those that the governor in late March said, we're asking you to stay home unless you are working in one of these, I think it was 13 industries. Those people had to go out while the rest of us stayed safe. So for those people, if they worked in the second quarter, at least half time in an essential industry, they will be able to apply this fall for a Futures for Frontliners grant, which would make their tuition free, and then be able to sign up for courses starting in January. That's been done by the governor. That will start in early September. And we expect that people will be coming through your offices who will be eligible, and it will be an opportunity for you to connect them and for you to support them. So this is our way to provide some help for people who need it now, and also do an important test run of Reconnect, which hopefully will be able, if the economy snaps back enough and we get enough state revenue, that we'll ultimately be able to fund.
Doug, for our audience members, can you, just a quick follow-up question, can you provide us a glimpse of what some of those 13 industries are?
Sure. The workers you would expect are, the food industry, healthcare industry, sanitation, people come and pick up our garbage, clean our streets, police, fire, utility workers, So it's those folks that most of us know had to go, delivery people, people who are transporting things. It's those folks that had to put their health and in some cases their lives on the line to keep things running while we were in our living rooms. And the governor felt that with the limited resource we had now, since we couldn't start Reconnect for everybody, because we want it to be universal, we could at least start it for those. And by the way, unlike Reconnect, which starts at age 25, this simply says if you have a high school degree or equivalent. I should mention one other thing, because it was really championed by Jeff Donofrio and Stephanie Beckhorn, who are deeply rooted in the Michigan Works system. They wanted something we could do for frontliners who did not have a high school degree or equivalent. So additional funds were added so that if you're a frontline worker and you apply and you're eligible, but you don't have a high school degree or equivalent, you can get tuition-free access to a high school completion program and to immediate skill training as you work on that high school diploma or GED that you can take into the workforce. And that's going to rely heavily on the Michigan Works system.
Great, thanks, Doug. So next question is for the entire panel, and feel free to someone jump in first as I ask this question. Otherwise, I'm going to have to call on you. So while we don't know what the post-COVID-19 economy is going to look like, we do know there will be a lot of Michigan residents who will not be returning to the jobs they had before COVID hit. Michigan Works is poised and ready to assist both job seekers and employers as the economy recovers. How do you see us working with the state on programs like Futures for Front and Michigan Reconnect? So maybe we'll go back to you first, Doug.
Well, we know one thing for certain, the economy has been disrupted. There's going to be a lot of restructuring. Businesses are going to have to change the way they do business, which affects employment and skill needs. People are going to lose jobs or fear that their jobs are tenuous. So your initial purpose, which of course is to connect people back into the labor force, will exist. But if at the same time we're going to tackle some of our equity problems and our ALICE problem, which if we say 42% of Michigan families are now operating below the ALICE cutoff, I can assure you that within the next year that number is going to rise. We probably, in addition to connecting people, have to work very hard to give them more skill. And what the data says, frankly, is while short-term skills can be very useful to getting a foothold or getting back in the workforce, which is very important, it's got to be regarded as a first step, not the only step. Unless you increasingly have a degree, an associate's degree in demand, a high value-added occupational certificate, and frankly, the most reliable ticket to the middle class is a bachelor's degree or a graduate degree. And so unless we attend to that at the same time we're trying to get people connected back to jobs, we may get our unemployment rate down, but we will not get our prosperity rate up, and we will still be left with a lot of the inequities between different groups that we confront today.
Great, thanks, Doug.
So I'm going to kind of segue from that. Back in the 80s when I started as a nurse, everybody was talking about this virus that was killing people. And I was in a children's hospital. So babies were being born, they were catching this virus from their mother. And we started something called Universal Precautions. And if you may have guessed, that was for AIDS, HIV. So then in the hospital, you treated every person as if they could potentially be sick or immunocompromised to make sure I protect myself, I protected my patient. Well, I think we've come to the point in this country of ours with this virus is that every single person needs to understand the concept of universal precautions. And that is an important thing with Michigan Works, is to make sure every single person in every single role that they play in our economy has a way to keep themselves safe, their clients safe, and their families safe. And I think that's a good conversation for Michigan Works to be having with everybody. It's back to universal precautions, everybody. You can get sick, and these are good ways to know about how to keep yourself safe. I think it's a good thing, right? We want to make sure people aren't living in fear, but they're empowered. I was at a restaurant the other day, and I'm not going to say where or who, but this person had their mask, but then they touched the hair, and then they touched the plate, and just not understanding about the transmission of germs and viruses. And so even in our factories, everybody needs to know that. In our food processing, every single part of our economy, every job we have, everybody needs to know about that.
Thanks, Representative Whiteford. Representative Sabo?
Yeah, I'm just going to pile on because I think Representative Whiteford and Mr. Ross have hit the nail on the head. But I think, when we talk about Michigan Works and their involvement with these programs, I really believe that your organization is going to play a very big role in how things play out over the future, because we're obviously in a changing world, and it's going to involve a lot of flexibility. It's going to require patience with everybody, but I really believe that your organization comes to the table with a lot of knowledge of what we're going to need going forward. So besides what the others have said, I think that's something that we really have to pay attention to as well.
Jacob, can I add to what Representative Sabo just said? I think Michigan Works is central to this because people are going to come to you. They're going to want a job right away. Certain cases, you're going to say, I have federal funds to help you pick up a skill that you could use to improve your position. And then I think there's another step, which I'm not sure Michigan Works always, or the economy required, which is, but let's talk about your career longer term. If you then want to get to the next stage, okay, now here is Reconnect. Now here is Futures for Frontliners. And ultimately, we've got to find ways to make four-year education more affordable so that people see it as a multi-step process. Because again, if you want to, at first you want to move from the $30,000 to $50,000 range. But ultimately, if you really want to have money in the bank and be able to send your kids to college and take vacations and live a better life, you've got to pretty quickly move to that $50,000 to $100,000 range. And unless you've got more education, increasingly, no one will pay you $80,000 a year with a high school education. It didn't used to be that way, but that's the new reality. And you are experts at the labor market. You, better than anybody, know what's really in demand, what's going on. And therefore, we rely on you to begin getting people to think in those longer terms.
That's a great point, Doug. I've had the privilege to speak on a couple panels in DC, and really this concept of lifelong learners, right? We know it's needed now more than ever. With the coronavirus, just has highlighted some of the issues. Not only are we dealing with technology issues that some of our job seekers are facing, but as employers had to shift to more virtual, the skill sets weren't quite matching to what employers' needs and demands were. So, how do we create a culture of lifelong learning so that, yes, it puts them on a good career pathway with a short-term certificate or credential, but then, that can move into, that associate's degree or that bachelor's degree or some type of certification on top of what they've already been learning. So it really is changing a culture for our state and frankly for our regions. And I feel personally, obviously I have a bias, but I feel like Michigan Works is poised to be in a great spot to provide, because we have career coaches that are those subject matter experts, and they know what's in demand. They know what training providers are doing well in this space of getting individuals not only the training that they need, but ultimately what we want with all of these credentials is that higher earnings piece, so that individuals can provide for their family, can make a difference in their communities. So thanks for that last statement, Doug. Really appreciate it. So as you all know, there is a growing need for retraining and reskilling of workers due to the huge number of jobs lost during the coronavirus crisis. What role do you think Going Pro Talent Fund could play in that need? And what can we do to get Going Pro Talent Fund funding included in the fiscal year 2021 state budget?
Oh, I'll talk about that briefly. I love Going Pro. I've been on so many business visits and manufacturing visits. with my Michigan Works person and explaining these possibilities for employers to enhance their employees' training. I think everything's at risk right now in the budget. I try to be hopeful, but I do understand the importance of this and the fact that Michigan Works helps facilitate all of this work. I don't know what Terry thinks if we have like a magic rainbow coming in front of us, but it's really important. And I mean, you guys hit it on the head. The more a person's trained, the more valuable they are to the business that they're working at, the more that they're capable. And innovation has to happen. I mean, if it didn't, we'd still be in the horse and buggy, right? There's big incidences that happen that make us realize, aha, we need to fix this up. I live right by South Haven. There was one restaurant that was always carry out. It was a drive-in. That guy is actually, he's putting on a new roof. He's redoing his building. He's had so much business through all of this. So he happened to be poised to completely take advantage of the ability to work and feed his clients safely. Well, more and more businesses figured out to evolve and do that. There's a huge disruption, just like Doug was saying, and this disruption is causing a lot of innovation. And you guys are poised to help people realize that they're not in a box, that they have to open up their head and figure out how they can best evolve into the current economy and make money and do their jobs. My son owns a little hotel and a campground. They're busier than ever. And it was really scary in April. They lost all possible thoughts of revenue. Everybody canceled everything, but people are coming. But what do? They keep their clients safe. You know, they're doing really good cleaning measures. If the state didn't have to tell them to do it, they did it because they want their clients to know they are safe coming into that facility, into that campground. So I always shudder when somebody says, legislators, what are you doing to keep people safe? Actually, it's the potential of new things that they can do.
Great. Thanks, Representative Whiteford. Representative Sabo, do you have anything you want to add?
Just simply say that, you know, going pro, like any other of the programs out there, I mean, I think they're all really going to have to be evaluated and see where they line up in today's new world. Because as we talked about, I mean, it's just an ever-changing world that we're in, and so I think they all have to be evaluated to see how they can adjust to this new normal that we're going into, or that we are in, I should say. And but as far as the money that goes to those programs, I mean, I think you know, as Representative Whiteford, you know, mentioned that, you know, I think everything is kind of up in the air right now because nobody really knows what that revenue number is going to be. You know, just like the rest of our state, there's a lot of uncertainty in people's homes and how their jobs are going to play out over the course of the next few months. You know, what's happening in our state as far as you know, business goes, or any of these other issues. There's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of people that are concerned, and I really believe that we as state officials are somewhat in that same boat in regards to trying to figure out how the state budget is going to play out, because we just don't know, and we got to see what we have available first before we can start spending it.
Yeah, I feel like you know, as Representative Whiteford mentioned in some of her initial statements, is that we're all kind of seeing what happens federally, right? Is that the next stimulus package, are there going to be funds to help support our states, and will there be workforce development dollars in that may support programs like Going Pro Talent Fund or Future for Frontliners or Michigan Reconnect? So all eyes on DC as of today. Hopefully this week we should find some additional information as to what's ahead. Doug, from a governor's perspective, what are your thoughts on Going Pro Talent Fund?
The governor, I believe, sees Going Pro and Reconnect as complementary elements in her efforts to close the skills gap. On one hand, businesses have immediate needs that they can identify and can offer mostly their own employees a chance to acquire those skills. At the same time, we want to empower individuals so that they can get skills, not having to rely on a particular business, but having the ability to get new skills either for that employer or other employers, or to pursue some other kind of dream that they have. So in many ways, the two of them, I think conceptually and politically are tied together. I would expect that at the point resources are available, you would see both Going Pro and Reconnect funded at the same time. They tend to both generate fairly strong bipartisan support. Reconnect passed, I think, 36-2 in the Senate and something like 94-14 in the House. So you had huge bipartisan majorities, and Going Pro similarly. So my hope is, but again, as both the representatives pointed out, the revenue situation is uncertain until we understand it better. It's hard to predict when both those programs will have the money to start up.
Yeah, and I just want to put some data to it. I think it's important to note that, when you look at Going Pro Talent Fund, pre-COVID, obviously, individuals receiving the training was a small piece of covering the cost of the training, but overall resulted in over $6,000 per person in annual income, which really takes them out of, I believe what Representative Whiteford said is the ALICE family, asset limited income constrained employed, dubbed by United Ways, really looking at what's a baseline income that individuals need to make in order to survive, right? And so, we know that this is one of those programs that have proven, and frankly, it probably didn't make sense, right? The coronavirus hit and we didn't know what to expect with the economy. And we thought it would be a V, as many economists were saying, as far as recovery, but we know that's not the case, right? This is gonna be a long-term recovery that's gonna take time. And unfortunately, Going Pro was cut, but we need that tool back in the toolbox, so to speak, in order for individual families to increase their earnings, to increase their credentials. And I think I can speak on behalf of Michigan Works as a whole, is we don't care what you call it, right? If you want to call Going Pro Talent Fund part of the Reconnect program, that's great. If you want to call it Future for Frontliners, that's great. just as long as there is that resource, not for our employers, but for our individuals receiving the training.
I think the governor's point of view has been, if it's a good program, keep it. You don't have to change the name of it. It's, so we won't rebrand it. At this point, it's Going Pro.
Great. Thanks, Doug. Representative Whiteford, did you want to add something? Sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. There's one thing that nobody's talking about right now, and it's the number of open UIA cases that I need some help from Michigan Works with mine. I have 350 people who have waited almost 3 months and still don't have a determination. One woman just told me she's losing her house. I had 5 cases move in the entire month of July. 5 out of 350. I've had 600 altogether. And that's not counting Senator Nesbitt, who's my senator. So I need help from you guys. Nobody's talking about the UIA difficulties, but it's a really big deal. So if you could help me with that, and Doug, if you could help with that as well, let's address the rest of these cases. We appropriated quite a large sum of money to be able to do this, and I had 5 cases move the entire month of July. So it's a tragedy. So I need help, please.
I hear you.
It's a great point, Representative Whiteford. It certainly is something that we've, as a Michigan Works, as a system, really rallied behind, right? We knew that our state was having troubles with responding to individual claimants at the time, and so we worked with them to get our staff trained and retrained, in some cases certified, and all the credentials needed to have access to the super secret data that we needed to, right? Of resetting passwords and simple things to kind of free up some of those more complex issues that were monetary determination and other issues where there may be fraud identified. And so, we as a system really stepped up, hundreds of individuals statewide. But as we begin to shift back to reemployment, unemployment benefits were never our thing, right? We often get tied to the unemployment system, but we're really the
None of ours, right?
So
none of ours, all of our staff, that's all they do.
I feel like that's all we're doing right now, honestly, in many cases. And we want to shift back to the reemployment piece because we know that people need to get jobs and reemployed as their federal benefits. The last check stopped July 25th. And so, for those that were fortunate enough to receive it, right? We do know there is still an issue ongoing issue. I don't know if Doug can really speak to it. I think it's really an issue more for Steve Gray from unemployment insurance, that we don't have anybody on this panel at this time. But we can certainly take any of your concerns that you have to our local contacts with unemployment insurance agency. Doug, was there anything that you wanted to add to some of those challenges with unemployment insurance?
No, not really. I agree. I think you have to take them to the system. But I understand, and I think it would be difficult for anybody who's trying to hang on and somehow is having difficulty getting through the process. So I appreciate the representative's passion around the issue.
Yep, and just know, Representative Whiteford, we're doing everything that we can, at least that we have the power and the authority to do. Yeah. So
I want to thank Representative White for bringing that up, because it's a great point. I too have been extremely frustrated, as probably we all have been, with how that's played out. And I have a constituent who just what's today? Just on Friday, 22 weeks he went without any kind of benefits. And he finally got his benefits all paid, but at the same time, that was a long haul. And we've got a lot of people that are still have not gotten their cases resolved. And I really think that when we talk about, reopening our economy and, putting people back to work, we need to include those that still have benefits coming to them, because there was a time frame that they didn't get paid. So thank you, Rep, for bringing that up.
Yep, and unfortunately there are thousands like that, Representative Sabo and Representative Whiteford, across our state. So, again, we're doing everything that we possibly can to try to assist. So locally, if there are things that we can help out with, I know we're working with your offices closely, but if there are things that additional needs that you have, we'd be happy to try to assist in any way that we can.
Thank you so much.
So I want to thank you for the great discussion today, Doug, Representative Sabo, Representative Whiteford. Do you have any final thoughts you would like to share?
I guess on behalf of the governor, there is no more central challenge than this whole question of skill and education to our future. And we have to make sure that while we're working through the crisis to help people just stay afloat, survive and get their benefits and keep a job or find a new one to hold on, that we keep those longer term goals in view. And again, I think Michigan Works has a real role. Very impressed with Stephanie Beckhorn and her team in Lansing that works with the whole system, and I think they see that clearly. And hopefully together we can turn coming out of this into an opportunity to accelerate the education and skill level of all our people. If we can do that, we can look back on this as having generated something positive.
Great, thanks, Doug. Great thoughts. Representative Sabo?
I think, with the things that we're dealing with right now between the health crisis and the economic crisis, now more than ever, I think that there is a need for us to work together. We have to be able to do that in order to find the common ground that is going to be needed to help people in our state, the 10 million people in our state. So I just think that's very crucial right now. It's going to involve a lot of, again, flexibility. It's going to involve a lot of patience. And but I believe that we as state employees, as elected officials, we really have to be working together for the benefit of all of our people right now. And I think that is a requirement going forward.
Great, thanks, Representative Sabo. Representative Whiteford?
Yeah, so I'm a real lemonade kind of person, right? The perception out there, I don't think anybody can argue, is that with the executive orders, they're very punitive against people. One of my favorite programs is in the agriculture world is MEAP, where farmers are taken hand in hand and helped to become environmentally friendly, and they do it voluntarily. And then they can say, hey, I've got a MEAP certified farm. I think this is a perfect time for all of our local businesses, with you guys helping them out, to say, look, I'm safety certified or whatever. I don't have to have somebody threaten my license to do the right thing. And that's where I think you guys are very encouraging and you'll be much more helpful. We'll have businesses feeling much more empowered if they're not feeling like their licenses are going to be taken away, but that they're doing the right thing. They just need the tools to know how to do that. And that's where you guys can really help out. And I just think it'll help our entire state and every single person in it, because you touch the lives of really everybody. So let's have a safe way to work, a safe way to serve, and change the whole rhetoric that's going on right now. And it's a lemonade kind of feeling, they're doing that. Businesses are doing that because they know it's the right thing to do. And that's my final message. Let's get out there and let's make lemonade and be positive and safe and keep everybody moving out there and working and buying and shopping and everything. So thanks for including me today.
Great. Thanks for being here, Representative Whiteford. I'd like to again thank our panel members for their time and sharing their knowledge and thoughts with us today. Michigan Works is proud to work with you to help get Michigan residents reemployed post-COVID and finding employers the talent they need to re-engage as the economy recovers. We hope to play an important role in programs like Michigan Reconnect and future Frontliner programs and stand ready to assist once those programs are put into place. Thank you everyone for joining us today for this informative discussion. Please consider joining the next virtual panel discussion on Monday, August 17, where we'll be talking about retraining and reskilling in a post-COVID economy. Have a great day.